Well, happy 4th of July. I was just reading the Declaration of Independence again, and actually it's pretty damn interesting that the stuff they were tolerating back then, or weren't tolerating back then, is going on today, except probably 1,000 times more, and we're still sitting here like a bunch of bumps on a log, right? Well, there's Dixie's a gray one, and you got Paws down there, the furthest one from us in the middle, and the Mama's Feather right there on the right, and Onyx was just here someplace. There he is. He or she, not sure. She looks just like the mama. This one was eating so much before, but you know, I'm looking at actually 1776 actually came about not just from taxation. It was I think it was early December of 1773. I think December 6th they had the Boston Tea Party. But that wasn't really what set off the revolution. It was the coercive acts by the British. And the British were debating this highly into the Parliament because they were saying, hey, if we start these coercive acts, it's going to start a lot of problems over there. People are going to get pissed off. And it turned out to be the case because once they started forcing the issue, and then they started leading the force to depriving the colonists of arms and gunpowder and things like that, well, as it led to the revolution, or actually the separation, the separation where the colonies split from the crown. And I looked up. Actually, I got 4. I think I found a 5th. Well, I'm almost 100% sure I found a 5th one, but I better triple check everything. It's actually on the Sons of the American Revolution and Daughters of the American Revolution, one of those two, so it's heavily documented. I got 4 going back to the American Revolution in South Carolina, 2 with my last name and 2 with different last names through the maternal side, but they're direct 5th and 6th grandfathers, and all of them were in South Carolina, and at one point in time they were under General Francis Marion's brigade, but it was only 3 generations later that they were going to fight for independence again with this Confederacy, So anyway, it's amazing that people still don't get it today, and the more people, I tell you the truth, I think sometimes people that are coming from foreign countries, depending on how responsible they are, they're better citizens than what's in the United States. It depends. It's a mixed bag what you get as an import, but sometimes people from foreign countries actually know more than the Americans do on the American history and what the United States was formed for. I don't profess to be an expert on it, but pretty much it's the right to self-determination and the inalienable rights of everybody else. The right to pursuit of happiness and economic freedom. And I've been looking at also just recently they passed, well, it wasn't like a law, but the Supreme Court basically said that the states have the right to pass laws on an internet tax if you're buying from a store outside the state. It doesn't have a store inside the state. It's a brick and mortar store. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what happened? New Jersey just jumped on that opportunity, immediately passed a law and said, this is going to spur on our brick and mortar stores inside the state and make them more money. Sure. Bull crap. That's why I really don't trust Trump, man. I mean, I know people, I really kind of go easy on the guy in some ways because I know it could be a lot worse, and I also go easy on it because a lot of people just have too much faith in this guy. But he's a Yankee. He's from up there. He's a Yankee through and through, man. And he's got the money Yankee attitude, which is, I always looked at it like either the person's, the government could be thought of it that way, or the person could be thought of it like that way. It's like a vacuum cleaner, and you set your sails any which way you make the money, and that's pretty much the way the politics goes too. No matter who's in office, they set their sails to whatever the perceived winds are going, whether the winds are made by the major media or not, or even if they're not the actual public perceived winds. That's how they set their sails. And money people got like a hollow pit. No matter how much they make, they want more. There's Actually, anybody that worked for it down in Florida, even though they were one of the biggest people down here, they were very quaint compared to what's up north. Nothing. That's why I had no problem adapting myself to, the bigger money down here when I was more actively doing accounting. And even though I'm not a CPA, I have basically trashed CPAs and ate them for lunch, man. Because I'm a very good organizer. And as a matter of fact, back when I was in high school, which is prior to college, which I have 30 credits in higher mathematics besides 30 credits in accounting, but that doesn't really mean nothing. It's like when you start combining, I had 99 percentiles, the top 1% of mathematics consistently all the time. 130 to 135 IQ, a couple times chest, which is not really that super great, but when you combine that with common sense, MacGyver, Cruder's Garage, I know how to fix things, sometimes you can see the forest when the CPAs are out there looking at all the details, and you can see the meat of the problem, and they can't. That's where I made a lot of people a lot of money. And I'm going to tell you though, most people with a lot of money, it's like all they got is money. I'm kind of going off on a tangent here. I started off about 1776, but I'm going to tell you, they usually dedicate so much to their money that they have family problems. Usually whoever their offspring is, they're nowhere near the capability or caliber they are. They seem to miss out on a lot of things, and everything's a big show. It's like philanthropy is always a financial angle. I can almost guarantee that. So, but down here in Florida, well, you know what, I guess if I went down to Jupiter, I was aware of some things down in Jupiter that are really super up there in the stratosphere, sort of like what's up in New York City. But by and large, even the people down here, they got $50 or $100 million, which is a shitload of money compared to a lot of people. It's nothing compared to the multi-billionaires. And when you're talking about somebody like Trump, I could pretty much read him. I've always have, and I've been flip-flopping back and forth on him since day one. But part of it is I don't want to get my viewers too pissed off at this guy, but he's not. He's very lukewarm as to restoring the Constitution and draining the swamp and all this garbage. He is actually doing a few things, but it's really, he's draining the parts of the swamp that are like so decrepit and so screwed up that they would screw the swamp up. That's how bad they are. He's not really draining the swamp per se. He's draining the parts of the swamp that are just beyond screwed up, that they can't even work with the rest of the swamp. Like somebody like Hillary Clinton, for crying out loud. I mean, Bill Clinton at least can play the game and act personable. She's so damn bad. She's an obvious example of the swamp that can't even work with the rest of the swamp. He's getting rid of that kind of stuff. And don't count on her ever to freaking get indicted for anything. She'll die of old age before they freaking get her. So, but I don't know. We celebrate 1776, but I remind people again that 1861 was 1776. I know it was the slave states that separated from the Union, but it wasn't because of slavery. It was because of the type of economic activity that was in those states, which was agriculture, and they were getting hit the hardest on the tariffs, on the import tariffs in exchange for exports of agriculture. If they were employing machinery, if they had machinery instead of slaves back then, and they were involved in agriculture and they were paying most of the tariffs, they would have still, split from the Union at that time. But I know, like in my family, the hey, little guy, girl, over here, there were only 3 generations from 1776. So I'm looking at all these names. I found another one, actually a 5th one, that was heavily documented with sons of the daughters of the American Revolution, and also there's other ones that are documented with the sons of the American Revolution. When they're documented with them, they're using really source documents. They're using real source documents. It's not a game. But only 3 generations earlier, they were fighting to separate from the crown over taxes. And if you look at, you read the Declaration of Independence right in the beginning, and you look at the financial situation where the South was paying 85% of the tax money being used by the big railroads and industries for their infrastructure and subsidizing them. They had more reason to freaking separate from the Union than the American colonies did from the Crown. But once they topple, you know, the Confederate angle, they're going to go after the American flag angle. You see, the American flag is this. Well, actually, to tell you the truth, the American flag has flew over more bad atrocities. You just think about it. Ever since the end of the Civil War, the war between the states, actually it wasn't Civil War, war between the states or war for Southern independence, the American flag flew over the wiping out of all the Western Plains Indians, getting involved. Well, I guess it was smart to freaking get rid of the fascism in the 1940s. That was a good one. But pretty much every other war we got involved in ever since that time was just capitalistic adventures. The South wasn't trying to start a war. They were just trying to get away. So, you know, once they topple, or if they topple, the ideals of the Southern War for Independence, they're going to go right for the American foundings. And it really hits home for me because in South Carolina, it was my lineage. Many ancestors, and I definitely haven't found all of them, because I was only looking through my last name. When I start checking a couple maternal lines, there's more going back to the male, you know, the mother to the grandfather of the mother, or the other grandfather, like each mother would have, like in the war between the states in 1861, the maternal line would have a few different, you know, 4 different grandfathers that were of age in the Revolutionary War. I've already found 2 from that, just that one, that were documented. One documented in the one documented in the Sons of the American Revolution, one documented in the Daughters of the American Revolution. So obviously, I'm thinking I could see what's on their mind. They were definitely thinking about the tax situation and how to get screwed financially. What would the North expect? You know, actually, the North could care less as long as they paid taxes, and if they double the taxes, you know, the money people up north would say, okay, let the human labor that were slaves do twice as much work. They wouldn't even care. That's how they were. That's how the money thinks. But they would have separated from the Union back then if everything that was in the farms at that time was mechanized and done with farm tractors. They still would have, you see, it was a type of industry that was in those states, that was primarily in those states, that was affected by the import tariffs in exchange for export of cotton and other agricultural goods. So, and by the way, this little guy, they're all actually getting pretty, hey, what are you doing, huh? Are you sleeping? This one here, hey. Well, you're pretty damn calm, aren't you? It's Onyx. I used to have a cat named Onyx. I really liked that one. It was a good cat. A long time ago, many decades ago. So I prefer to name this one Onyx. I'm not sure if it's a male or female, but, you know, take a look later. I got a couple more months at least before we get them fixed. And I'm going to leave Mama not fixed for a while. Hopefully she doesn't get pregnant again. Because, you know, she can nurse him when in between the meals I give him. Looks like he's sleeping. So, what are you doing, huh? This guy, man, he's freaking out like a light. He's breathing though, see him? He just walked up here and he's like falls asleep. He's the one I see all the time. Dixie, the grayish one, that one I don't see too much. Paws, I don't see too much. Probably Dixie's probably the shyest one of all of them. That's the smallest one. Him, he was jumping around on a boat back there. He was up on that thing. So, anyway. Over now, some food for thought. Happy 4th of July.